Hey folks, welcome. Today we're installing the Giken Remark WR-1 exhaust system on the ND2 Miata. I'm going to tell you all about it and how to install it up next. Welcome to the Jeff Only channel. I'm Daniel, and if you missed my last Miata video, we did a 3 exhaust comparison. We compared the stock exhaust with the Goodwin Racing SS muffler on the stock mid-pipe and this Remark exhaust system that we're installing today. All sound clips are done with the JDL 4:1 header. We also have a video where we show you how to install that header. You can check out this pop-out banner over here, or check the link in the description for my Miata playlist. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about this beautiful exhaust system and how you can install it yourself with just some basic hand tools. Giken, and you might say Giken, but I think Japanese people would say Giken, and Remark came together to make this exhaust system. It's a header back race exhaust system, so it bolts right up to your JDL 4:1 header or even your stock manifold. It's called a race exhaust because it's for off-road use only, and it's not carb exempt, so you Californians are gonna have to get it shipped somewhere else and go pick it up out of state because they're not shipping it to California for you. The system is designed to bolt onto your 2016 and up Mazda Miata, and it is really nice. It's made from T304 stainless steel exhaust, 2.5-inch tubing, mandrel bent of course, and just look at those TIG welds. Try getting that at your local exhaust shop. So who's this exhaust system for? Well, it was specifically designed for SCCA STR class competitors. Vince has an STR Miata, and he's pretty good in my opinion, so it's a great exhaust for him. It's also nice because it has a 96 decibel rating. That means Vince can compete at SCCA noise restricted events and not get flagged. Now, most exhaust systems don't exactly give you a lot of extra horsepower, but combined with the JDL header, you may get 10 to 15 horsepower out of this. And this system is also lighter than the stock system by about 8 pounds. Combine that with other weight saving techniques and your car's definitely gonna be faster. Now, it comes packaged really well with all the hardware you need except for maybe a header to mid-pipe gasket. Our gasket was burnt up, so you may need to get a new one, but if you have the stock manifold, I think you can reuse the stock gasket. So this install can totally be done on your own without paying a shop to do it, as long as you can get your car up on 4 jack stands. It's not that hard. Let me show you how it works. The Miata's exhaust is 3 sections. There's the exhaust manifold or header, which we replaced in another video. And today we're working with the mid-pipe, which connects to the manifold just behind the front wheels, and the muffler, which connects to the mid-pipe right behind the rear wheels. The exhaust hangs by 5 rubber hangers. The Remark exhaust actually comes in 2 pieces for the mid-pipe and a muffler separate, just like the OEM system. Here's a quick overview of what you're going to see in this video. Removing and installing the exhaust on the Miata is actually pretty easy, and the stock exhaust can come out by just pulling 2 bolts from the manifold and mid-pipe joint and then unhanging it from the 5 rubber hangers. But that can be difficult on your own, so if you're doing it solo, you may want to also remove the 2 bolts that hold the muffler to the mid-pipe and remove the 2 parts separately. Then you swap over the O2 sensor to the new Remark exhaust, and the Remark exhaust can be installed as 1 whole unit, 2 separate pieces, or even 3 pieces if you like. In this video, we're putting the mid-pipe together on the ground and then installing it, then installing the muffler separately. But if you've got extra hands, it's totally acceptable to put together the entire exhaust, slide it into the car, hang it on the 5 hangers, and then bolt it up at the manifold or header. Now let's get to the smaller details that are important. For this installation, you'll need the following tools. You will of course need ratchets, a medium one, but also maybe a large one because bolts do tend to be rusted on in exhausts. So in that case, you should probably have some penetrating lubricant like PB Blaster and maybe even a breaker bar, but power tools are of course always helpful. Because it's a Miata, you'll need a 14mm wrench and a 14mm socket. A deep one will get the job done. You'll also need 10mm, 12mm, and 13mm sockets, and if you have the JDL header installed, the bolts and nuts on that are 5/8 inch and 11/16. You'll want the wrenches and sockets for the bolts and nuts. And an exhaust hanger removal tool is helpful. They're 20 bucks on Amazon, but if you don't have that, you can totally just use a nice long narrow screwdriver and some dish soap to lube the hangers. To remove the O2 sensor, you'll need an O2 sensor crow's foot like this in 22mm, which is also 7/8 inch. But since you're doing it off the car, You can also just use an open-ended wrench of the same size. We'll of course need a jack and jack stands to lift the vehicle up. All right, let's get on to the installation. The first step, of course, is raising the vehicle and placing it safely on jack stands so you can get under the car. Be sure to get it as high as possible. Depending on the age of your car and where you live, you may want to spray your exhaust bolts with some PB Blaster or other penetrating lubricant to help get them off. Underneath the car, there are two braces that need to be removed. These are obvious in silver here, and they're held on with 12mm bolts. If you have a power tool, this will go pretty darn quick. The forward brace under the transmission has 4 bolts, and the middle brace farther down the car also has 4 bolts. Now disconnect the O2 sensor. Just press the clip with your thumb and pull it off. Next, disconnect the mid-pipe from the exhaust manifold or header. It's just 2 14mm bolts. Again, a power tool will really help make this job easier. We have the JDL header, so Vince is using some different size sockets. Once that's off, you can carefully pull out the gasket. Ours was worn out and needed to be replaced, but your stock one should be reusable if not damaged. If you intend to take the exhaust out in 2 parts, you'll now need to disconnect the mid-pipe from the muffler, removing these 2 14mm nuts. That's what we decided to do, but if you want to take everything out all at once, you can skip this step and move on to the steps where we unhang the exhaust. When removing the exhaust nuts, if by chance you pulled one of these studs out, it's no problem. You can use a deep 13mm socket to work it back in for reuse later. Whether or not you chose to remove the muffler separately, it's now time to unhang the exhaust. There's one hanger right ahead of the rear axle, and then there's the 4 hangers, 2 on each side of the stock muffler. If you have an exhaust hanger removal tool like this one shown from one of my previous videos, it makes it so much easier. But if you don't have one, that's okay. Just use a long screwdriver lubed up with some dish soap and a little dish soap on the hanger, and they should slide right out, but it does take a little more work. We found it easiest just to disconnect the 2 hangers on one side of the muffler, and then you can just maneuver the muffler to the left or right as necessary to slide it away from the other hangers. But if you separate it from the mid-pipe, you'll also need to get those studs out of the way. Now the whole exhaust is loose and you can just pull it out from under the car. Now that we have the exhaust out, we can see how different the OEM system is from the Remark system. Look how beautiful and shiny that Remark system is, and remember, it's 8 pounds lighter. All right, let's get to assembling the Remark system. Remember, it comes in 3 parts, so we're gonna go ahead and just do the first 2 parts of the mid-pipe so we have just one big mid-pipe section like the OEM. Use the provided hardware and put the gasket in between the 2 joints. Make sure it's lined up really well. We actually had to do this a couple times to ensure that not only the 2 pipe flanges were matched up, but also that the gasket was totally centered and not hanging out either edge. Use your 14mm wrenches to tighten these bolts to about 26 foot-pounds. Once you have the exhaust put together into as many pieces as you like, for us it's just a mid-pipe and the muffler separate, you can move the O2 sensor from the stock exhaust over to the new one. Just use a 22mm or 7/8 inch open-end wrench or an O2 sensor crow's foot like this one. This tool is really helpful if you remove the sensor while it's still on the vehicle, but off the vehicle it's easy with any wrench. The wire is held on with this little 10mm nut, so you want to move that and move the whole unit over to the Remark system. Don't touch the end of the O2 sensor, and you may want to put some anti-seize on the threads of the O2 sensor so you can get it out easier in the future. We had to bend a little metal tab on this part here before we could put the 10mm nut back on. Next, we're going to install the exhaust. Since we decided to do a mid-pipe and muffler separately, Vince is putting in the mid-pipe by first hanging it on that mid-hanger just ahead of the rear axle. If you're putting in everything, you'll of course also hang the muffler at the same time. It's way easier putting those exhaust hangers on rather than taking them off. Now Vince is connecting the mid-pipe to the header or the exhaust manifold. Just put the appropriate bolts, locking washers, and nuts if you have a JDL header. Otherwise, just use the OEM hardware from your stock exhaust manifold. Make sure you put a gasket in there. Tighten up the bolts to about 26 foot-pounds. They should be nice and snug to ensure there's no exhaust leaks. Once you've done that, don't forget to reconnect the O2 sensor wire. That just clicks right into place. Now we have the entire mid-pipe completely installed. Now it's time to add the muffler because we decided to do that separate. When you put the muffler in, just lube up those exhaust hangers and slide the 2 hangers on one side into the rubber hangers on the car. And then you can position the other side into the other 2 rubber hangers. Once the muffler's hung, you can connect the muffler to the mid-pipe. Now this, in a way, is easier on the ground. You can see Vince is actually using his knee to try to position the muffler just right so he can get the gasket centered up and get the bolts through the flanges to tighten them up. You make this connection with the Remark provided bolts and nuts. They are 14mm. Tighten these down to about 26 foot-pounds. Before you lower the car, you want to check for leaks. You do this by starting the car. Now, a cold started car will have some ticking at first, but once it calms down, it should be fairly quiet and you shouldn't hear any ticking. Listen closely near the joints. If there's any problems, you'll want to recenter the gaskets as necessary and tighten them up. You can also smell exhaust leaks, but when you install a new exhaust, there's gonna be some smells. Like that metal getting hot for the first time, it definitely has a particular smell. And this system has a high flow catalytic converter, so there's gonna be a little extra exhaust smell compared to the stock system. Lastly, make sure you put those cross braces back on underneath the car, then lower it down from the jack stands and take it for a drive. Now you can enjoy that new exhaust. Not too bad, right? Bolt-in exhaust systems are great because they're fairly straightforward to put in, just a little awkward working on your back when you don't have a lift. No welding required, you don't have to pay a shop, and this system is designed really well, so we didn't really have any issues putting it together. Now, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It really helps this video get out to other viewers. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. I've got a sway bar video for the ND2 Miata coming up soon, so you'll wanna know when that comes out. All right, thanks so much for watching the Jet Fuel Only channel. I'll see you next time.